Hey, Andrew, thanks for joining me and for joining our church family. Take a minute and share what God did recently as you visited Ukraine.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it was, man, it was quite a trip. So we were crossing the Polish-Ukrainian border. And just to put this in context, okay, we'd driven basically to that point, I think 22 straight hours and had come from, we had a 1 hour break somewhere in there. And we'd come from Berlin all the way to Warsaw, picked up 6 tons of food. And we're now crossing the Ukrainian border, trying to get to a place called Ivano-Frankivsk in the south. It was about 6 hours into the country. Okay, so we're at the border and anticipated getting over in about an hour or so. It took 4 hours, actually 4.5. And we're like, man, this is bad because there's a curfew that you can't be on the roads after 10 o'clock at night. And we had to get back into Poland that evening or we were going to miss that curfew. And so we're already realizing something's gone wrong with our plan. So we're thinking, do we have the group from the town in Ivano-Frankivsk, a church there that was going to meet us and receive all of the food and aid that we were bringing? Do they come up and meet us on the road, or, what do we do? So we're trying to figure out the logistics. And then one of the guards at the Ukrainian border says, there are 150 moms and children who have been evacuated from Mariupol. And if you've seen on the news, Mariupol is the place where, it's just been absolutely devastated by the Russians and bombing and all that. So they've just arrived in this town of Lviv. And Lviv is only about an hour and 45 minutes from where we were at that point. They said, if you're going with food, they said, they don't have anything for them. Would you stop and just drop some of this for them? Would you be willing to do that? So we talked about it, said, hey, let's make the stop. And so we did. Well, we get there. Turns out the needs were unbelievable. And, I don't have time to tell you every story, but every room, there were people just on cots and mattresses, just lining the room. We got there and saw the scale of the need, and we just made a quick decision. We're just dropping everything here because there's another delivery going to the place we were going to be going the very next week. So I said, these people don't have anybody helping them. Let's just drop all of this food here now. Well, long story short, we get back across the border safely. Everything works out. We get back to the States. And then this last week, we were talking with the director of that school where all of these moms and children had been, and it had grown to 300 people by this time. She said, your aid allowed 300 people to have hot showers because the day before you came, our boiler broke. We were having to feed 300 people and we were having to chop the food by hand. We got a food processor. We were able to connect the church that we were originally going to in the south with a church right next to them. Well, I say right next, about 20 kilometers away. Turns out the churches in Lviv were saying, we want to start a new church in this area because there's not a church within 20 kilometers because it's 20 kilometers outside town. We're going to try to plant a church there. On top of that, the director of the school who met us was sick in bed at home that day. And her student was the border guard, former student. And he met us and we had talked about what we were doing, talked about our faith, talked about our goals. And he called her and said, there is a group, the most wonderful people I've ever met. And they are coming from America and you've got to get up and you've got to meet them. I don't care how sick you are, take some pills, put a smile on your face and go to the school and meet them because they're coming. Of course, she didn't really know if that was true. The border guard was hoping we would go, but certainly we did go. And because of that, now there's going to be churches planted there. We are now in touch with the superintendent of that entire public school district of the western part of the city. And now there's 12 schools that have been opened up to us to deliver aid, each one of them housing about 300 refugees. And that just goes to show you what you think is a border delay may actually be a divine appointment.
So, what ended up being a feeling of rerouting was truly God's providence, putting you right where he wanted you to do the work he wanted to do. And Andrew, thanks for letting us be a part. We're really glad to be partnering with you, and especially in that endeavor.
Hey, thanks. It's great to share the story. And every week there's a new one to share. So
that's awesome. You have read a book.
Yeah, we should.